Every evening, it was their little ritual, the day winding down, the world outside growing quiet. He would brew her a cup of tea, Earl Grey, just a touch of honey, steeped perfectly. He'd carry it to her on a small wooden tray, set it on the table beside her favorite armchair, lean down, kiss her forehead. "Here you are, darling. Your evening tea." She'd smile, wrap her hands around the warm cup, inhale the comforting aroma, take that first slow sip, and for a moment, everything felt right, safe, loved. For months, this was the highlight of her day, the gentle close to whatever the hours had brought. But hidden in that same cup, night after night, was something no one could taste. A few clear drops, from a small bottle tucked behind the spices. Not enough to end a life in one swallow. Just enough to steal it, one evening at a time.
Welcome to Nightmare Crimes, where every story blurs the line between fact and fear. Some say they're true, others hope they're not. We don't decide, you do. Subscribe and step into the unknown.
This is the true story of Eleanor Whitmore, a kind, gentle woman who loved her garden, her books, and the quiet life she'd built with her husband, Thomas. To everyone in their small town, they were the perfect couple, the ones others looked to with quiet envy. But behind the closed doors of their beautiful cottage, Thomas was slowly poisoning the woman he'd promised to cherish. Not with anger, not in a moment of madness, but patiently, deliberately, day after day, sip after sip, until Eleanor began to fade. Her strength, her memory, her life. Doctors were baffled. Friends whispered about early illness. And Eleanor, she began to believe she was simply growing old before her time. Until one quiet evening, one small act of desperation revealed the truth. And what Eleanor did next wasn't loud, wasn't violent. It was quiet, precise, and utterly devastating. This is a story of love turned lethal, of trust weaponized, of a woman who refused to vanish silently. You'll feel the warmth of that tea in your hands, and the chill when you realize what was in it. Stay with me. The kettle is boiling. The evening is just beginning, and the secret is about to pour out. Eleanor Whitmore was 34 years old, and to anyone who knew her, she seemed to live in a world of quiet beauty. She was the town librarian, the one who knew every regular's favorite author, who could recommend a book that felt like it was written just for you. Her days were spent among shelves of stories, surrounded by the scent of old paper and fresh flowers she brought from her garden. Eleanor loved simple things, tending her roses, reading by the fire on rainy afternoons, long walks along the river path where the willows dipped into the water. She had never been one for grand adventures. She wanted a life of peace, of kindness, of someone to share the quiet moments with. And then she met Thomas. He was 38. An accountant who worked from a small office in town. Steady, thoughtful, the sort of man who noticed when you were tired and made sure you had a warm coat before you left the house. They met at the monthly book club held in the library basement. Eleanor was leading the discussion on Jane Austen. Thomas sat in the back row, listening intently. Afterward, he lingered, approached her shyly. "I don't often speak up, but your thoughts on Elizabeth Bennet, they were spot on." She smiled. They talked until the caretaker turned off the lights. From that night on, he became a regular. Not just at book club. He'd bring her a single rose from his own garden, leave it on the returns desk with a note. For the woman who makes stories come alive. He courted her slowly, the old-fashioned way. Walks after closing, picnics by the river, handwritten letters slipped between the pages of books she loved. He listened when she spoke, remembered the small things, how she took her tea, her favorite poet, the way she worried about the stray cat behind the library. When he proposed, it was under the old oak tree in the park. On one knee, a simple ring. "Eleanor, you are my peace. Will you let me be yours?" She said yes. The wedding was small, just family and close friends. In the garden of their new cottage. White roses everywhere. Vows spoken softly. Promises of forever. Everyone said they were perfect for each other. The quiet librarian and the gentle accountant. A love like in storybooks. They settled into a life that felt timeless. Mornings in the garden, evenings by the fire, and every night, Thomas would make her tea. A ritual born of care. He'd boil the kettle, measure the leaves, add just a touch of honey, bring it to her with a smile. Your evening tea, my love. Eleanor would settle into her chair, book in hand, the day's worries melting away with that first sip. It was their sacred time. The world outside could wait. Comment quietly in your heart as we go on. Have you ever known a love that felt this gentle, this safe? Because in the beginning, it truly was. Thomas was everything she dreamed of. Attentive, protective. He encouraged her to take days off when she was tired. Managed the household finances so she wouldn't worry. Let me carry the burdens, Eleanor. You just be. She felt cherished. Spoiled, even. When she mentioned wanting to travel someday, he smiled. We'll go anywhere you like. When the time is right. Life felt full, complete. But slowly, almost imperceptibly, the gentleness began to tighten. Thomas discouraged late evenings at the library. It's not safe walking home in the dark. He preferred they spend evenings together. Just the two of them. Visitors became fewer. We don't need the noise. Eleanor didn't mind. She loved their quiet world. Until one autumn, she began to feel tired. More tired than usual. A weariness that settled in her bones. She mentioned it to Thomas over breakfast. He looked concerned. Took her hand. I'll make an appointment with Dr. Harrow. We'll sort this out. And every evening, he still made her tea. The ritual continued. Comforting. Unchanging. As Eleanor's strength began to fade. If you feel the first chill now, hold it. The story is only beginning. And the darkness is gathering like evening shadows. Stay with me. The tea is steeping. At first, Eleanor thought it was the season. Autumn turning to winter. Shorter days. Colder nights. She felt a little more tired than usual. A heaviness in her limbs after tending the garden. A fog in her thoughts when shelving books at the library. Nothing alarming. Just age, perhaps. Or the natural slowing of time. She mentioned it to Thomas one evening over tea. I feel a bit weary lately. He set his cup down. Looked at her with gentle concern. My love, you work too hard at that library. Let me make you some tea, something soothing. He brewed chamomile that night. Added honey. Brought it to her with a warm blanket. She slept deeply. The next day, still tired. But she smiled it away. Winter, after all. The doctor's visit confirmed nothing serious. A touch of anemia, perhaps. Or the change in weather. Iron tablets. Rest. Thomas was attentive. Drove her to every appointment. Researched symptoms in his study late at night. Made sure she took her tablets. And every evening, the tea ritual continued. Sometimes Earl Grey. Sometimes chamomile. Always with that touch of honey. Always brought by his steady hand. The tiredness deepened. Eleanor found herself napping in the afternoons. Forgetting where she'd placed her reading glasses. Struggling to finish a novel, something that had never happened before. Her hands began to tremble slightly when pouring tea for guests. She laughed it off. These old hands aren't as steady as they used to be. Thomas squeezed her shoulder. You're perfect just as you are. But the changes kept coming. A strange metallic taste at the back of her throat. Hair falling out more than usual. Strands on her brush, her pillow. Aches in her joints that no weather could explain. She returned to Dr. Harrow. More tests. Blood drawn. Scans. Everything looks puzzling, he said. No clear cause. Perhaps a viral thing lingering. Thomas was there, holding her hand, asking thoughtful questions. The perfect husband. Back home, he took over more. Encouraged her to cut her hours at the library. Let me look after you. He began preparing all her meals. So you don't have to stand so long. And every evening, the tea, stronger sometimes, to help her sleep. Eleanor drank it gratefully, because it was the one thing that still felt like comfort. Comment in your thoughts as we continue. Have you ever felt your body changing in ways no doctor could name? A slow fading you couldn't fight? Because by spring, Eleanor was barely leaving the house. The garden went untended, roses overgrown. She spent days in her armchair by the window, reading less, staring more. Her skin grew pale. Her once bright eyes dulled. Weight fell away. Thomas nursed her devotedly. Carried trays. Read to her when her eyes tired. Bathed her when the weakness made standing difficult. Neighbors admired him. What a good man. taking care of her like that. Her sister Clara visited when she could. Worried. Eleanor, you look so frail. Thomas explained gently. The doctors are still searching for answers. It's been so hard on her. Clara held Eleanor's thin hand. You must fight this, sister. Eleanor whispered. I'm trying. I just feel so tired. Clara noticed the tea on the tray. Thomas always bringing it. But she thought nothing of it. Who would? By summer. Eleanor could barely walk to the garden gate. Her voice grew soft. Memory slipped, forgetting names, conversations. Thomas spoke for her. Managed everything. He told the doctor. She's declining. I don't know how much longer. His eyes filled with tears. The perfect picture of devotion. But in the quiet of the night, when Eleanor slept fitfully, Thomas would sit in his study, reading medical journals, researching symptoms, adjusting dosages. The small bottle in the shed, old rat bait from years ago. Thallium. Slow. Silent. Perfect. He added a little more each week. Watching her fade. Planning. Waiting. For the day she would be gone. And no one would ever know. If a chill just ran through you. Hold it close. Because Eleanor was slipping away. Day by day. Sip by sip. And the man who sat beside her. Who held her hand. Who brewed her evening tea. Was counting the moments until she was no more. But Eleanor, even in her weakness, still had one small spark left. One quiet act of defiance. That would change everything. We're entering the darkest months now. The time when hope almost died. But also, when the truth began to surface. Stay with me. The tea is cooling. And the secret is almost ready to be poured. The time when light seemed to leave Eleanor's world altogether. Winter had settled in fully. Frost on the windows. Bare branches scratching the glass. Eleanor rarely left her armchair by the fire. The garden she loved, the roses, the lavender, lay untended. Overgrown. Forgotten. She was too weak to walk there. Her legs trembled after a few steps. Her hands shook holding a book. Pages turned slower. Then not at all. Thomas had become her entire world. He carried trays to her chair. Fed her soup when her hands failed. Read to her in the evenings when her eyes grew too tired. His voice calm. Steady. The symptoms deepened. Memory slipped away in pieces. She'd ask the same question twice in an hour. Forget the names of old friends. Call Thomas by her late father's name in moments of confusion. He'd smile sadly. It's all right, my love. The illness is hard on your mind. Doctors visited the house now. No more trips to the surgery. Dr. Harrow shook his head. This is progressing faster than we expected. We're looking at rare neurological conditions. Clara, Eleanor's sister, came when she could. But Thomas gently limited visits. She tires so easily. The rest is important. Clara argued once. She needs family around her. Thomas's voice softened. Of course. But the doctor said stimulation can overwhelm her. Clara backed down, guilt heavy in her chest. When she did visit, Eleanor seemed like a shadow. Skin almost translucent. Eyes distant. Voice a whisper. Clara held her hand again. Eleanor, fight this. Please. Eleanor's grip was feather-light. I don't know what to do, Clara. I just feel like a shadow of myself. Clara looked and noticed the ever-present teacup again. He makes it for you every night. Eleanor nodded faintly. It's the only thing that helps. Clara thought nothing of it then. Who would suspect? But doubt had begun to seed. In Eleanor's mind most of all, the hallucinations started. Whispers in the walls. Shadows moving when no one was there. She told Thomas one night. Terrified. He held her. It's the illness, darling. The mind plays tricks when the body is weak. He spoke to the doctor. Suggested psychiatric evaluation. Delusions are common in these cases. Medication was added. To calm her. To quiet the fears. Eleanor took it. Because what else could she do? She began to believe him. That it was all in her head. That she was losing herself. Not to poison, but to madness. She stopped questioning the tea. Stopped wondering why she felt worse after drinking it. Thomas watched her surrender. Day by day, his plan unfolding perfectly. The insurance policy, increased quietly months earlier. The will, updated in his favor. Everything in place. He sat by her bed at night. Held her hand. Waited. For the end to come naturally. Quietly. Without suspicion. Eleanor drifted in and out of sleep, dreams and reality blurring. She thought often of the garden in spring, the roses blooming, the life she'd once had. And in her weakest moments, she prayed for peace, for it to be over. Thomas heard her whispers, smiled to himself. It would be soon, very soon. Comment in the silence of your thoughts. Have you ever felt doubt eat away at your own truth? Felt alone in a room full of care? Because Eleanor was at the edge, the darkest month of all, when hope seemed lost forever. But even in the deepest shadow, a small light remained, one Eleanor hadn't yet seen, one that would change everything. We're almost at the turning point, the moment the darkness begins to crack. Stay with me. The fire is dying, but the story is far from over. The darkest months had come, not just in the sky outside, but in Eleanor's world within. Winter gripped the cottage like a fist. Frost etched patterns on the windows. The fire burned low and constant. Eleanor's chair by the hearth became her kingdom, and her prison. Thomas tended her with the patience of a saint. He carried her from bed to chair in the mornings, wrapped her in blankets woven by her own mother years ago, spoon-fed her broth when her hands shook too badly, read to her in a low, soothing voice when silence grew too heavy. Always. The evening tea, brewed stronger now, to ease the pain in your joints, my love. She drank it obediently. It deepened, spread. Her skin grew thin and translucent. Veins blew beneath the surface. Her voice became a whisper. Words came slowly, sometimes not at all. Memory fragmented. She would ask for her mother, who had passed years before. Thomas would hold her. She's at peace, Eleanor. Rest now. Dr. Harrow's face grew graver with each visit. This progression, it's unusual. We've ruled out so much, yet. He prescribed stronger medicines. To ease the pain, to help her sleep. Thomas administered them carefully, measured each dose. Clara fought to visit more often, but Thomas met her at the door. Voice soft, eyes tired. She's sleeping. The doctor said no excitement. Clara peered past him, saw Eleanor's frail form in the chair, a shadow of the sister she knew. She argued. She needs to see family. She's fading, Thomas. He placed a hand on her arm. Clara, I'm doing everything I can. The strain of visitors sets her back. Clara left in tears, guilt gnawing at her, for not pushing harder, for believing him. Inside the cottage, Eleanor drifted in a haze. Days blurred into nights. Dreams bled into waking. She saw shapes in the corners of the room, heard whispers in the wind, told Thomas one night, voice trembling, I think I'm going mad. He stroked her hair, tears in his eyes. No, my love. It's the illness. It plays cruel tricks on the mind. He suggested a psychiatrist to help you find peace. Medication was added to calm the hallucinations, to quiet the fear. Eleanor took it because doubt had taken root, deep root. She began to believe that the enemy was inside her, not in the tea, not in the man who brewed it, but in her own failing body, her own broken mind. She stopped fighting the weakness, stopped questioning the fog, accepted the decline, prayed quietly for it to end, for peace. Thomas watched, waited. The insurance papers were signed. The will witnessed. Everything in order. He sat by her bed at night, held her cold hand, counted her shallow breaths. It would be soon, very soon. No one would question. A tragic illness. A devoted husband left behind. Perfect. If your heart aches for Eleanor now, hold that feeling. Because this is the moment when hope seems lost forever. When the darkness feels complete. But even in the deepest winter, a seed remains, buried, waiting. Eleanor had one left. One small, fragile thing she hadn't yet let go of. And it was about to change everything. We're approaching the turning. The moment the light breaks through. Stay with me. The fire is low, but the story is far from finished. And then, in the deepest part of winter, when hope seemed buried forever, a small light flickered. Eleanor had reached the edge. But one afternoon, when Thomas had gone to town for supplies, Eleanor found a moment of clarity. Rare, precious. She dragged herself from her chair, legs shaking, to the small desk in the corner. A parcel had arrived days earlier. One she'd ordered in secret. during a brief window when Thomas left her alone with the post. A tiny camera, disguised as an ornamental clock, small enough to sit on the kitchen shelf. Unnoticed, she'd told Thomas it was a gift for the mantel. He'd placed it there himself, facing the counter, where he brewed the tea. Eleanor had waited. Weeks. Too weak to check the footage often. But that afternoon, she managed to open the app on her tablet, hands trembling, heart pounding with what little strength remained. She played the recordings. First, nothing unusual. Thomas humming as he boiled the kettle, measuring leaves, adding honey. Then one evening, when she'd been asleep upstairs, the camera caught it. Thomas alone in the kitchen, opening the cupboard, taking out a small, unmarked bottle from the very back, adding 3 clear drops to the teapot, shaking it gently, replacing the bottle, washing his hands, smiling faintly to himself, brewing the tea as normal, carrying it upstairs. Eleanor watched. Again and again, tears silent on her cheeks. Not from weakness, from the shock of truth. He was poisoning her. The man who read to her at night, who held her when she cried, who promised forever under the oak tree, was ending her life, one evening tea at a time. She didn't scream, didn't confront him when he returned. She was too weak for that, and too clever. Because in that moment of revelation, something shifted inside her. The fog lifted. Just enough. She understood now. The illness wasn't madness. It wasn't fate. It was him. And if she wanted to live, she would have to fight. Quietly, the way he had poisoned her. She began the plan. Slow. Careful. First more footage. Every evening. Collecting proof. Saving it to a hidden folder. Then research. When Thomas slept, she used the tablet. Searched symptoms. Matched them to thallium poisoning. Slow, cumulative, tasteless. Found old articles about cases just like hers. Husbands. Wives. Insurance. She tested the tea one night. Poured a little into a jar when he wasn't looking. Hid it. Next contact. Clara. She couldn't call. Thomas monitored the phone. But she wrote a letter. Short. Careful words. I need your help. Come alone. Bring Dr. Harrow. Slipped it into Clara's coat pocket during a brief visit. Clara came 2 days later. Thomas reluctant, but unable to refuse family. In the bedroom, while Thomas made tea downstairs, Eleanor whispered everything. Showed the footage on the tablet. Gave Clara the jar of tea. Test it, please. Clara's face drained of color. She nodded, left with the evidence hidden in her bag. The plan took shape. Eleanor played weaker, more confused. Let Thomas believe she was slipping faster. He grew bolder, added more drops, thinking the end near. But Eleanor switched the cups when he turned away, poured his tea into hers into a plant. Day after day, small acts. She began taking charcoal tablets, hidden in her pillow, to bind the poison. Slowly, her strength returned. Just a fraction. Enough. Clara returned with Dr. Harrow. Tests on the tea jar. Confirmed thallium. Police involved quietly. A detective, kind-eyed, discreet, visited under the guise of a welfare check. Eleanor showed the footage. More searches of the house, while Thomas was out. The bottle found in the shed. Fingerprints. Purchase records from years ago. Everything matched. But they waited. For the perfect moment. Eleanor continued the performance. The devoted wife fading away. Thomas relaxed. Careless. The insurance payout looming. He even began sorting her jewelry. And now, the morning that changed everything. Spring had begun to touch the garden. The first green shoots pushing through the earth. Eleanor watched them from her window. Weak still, but alive. The plan had been in motion for weeks. Clara and the detective had gathered everything. The footage, the tainted tea samples, the bottle from the shed. Tests confirmed thallium. Enough accumulated in Eleanor's saved blood samples to prove long-term poisoning. They waited for the perfect moment, when Thomas would feel safest, most in control. That morning, he rose early, made the tea as always, stronger than ever. He carried the tray upstairs. Eleanor, my love, time for your tea. She lay still, eyes closed, breathing shallow. He set the tray down, turned to open the curtains, letting in the pale spring light. And in that moment, Eleanor opened her eyes, sat up slowly, voice clear for the first time in months. Thomas. He froze. Turned. Shock on his face. She was supposed to be fading. Not alert. Not strong. I won't be needing that tea today. He stammered. Darling, you're awake. You look. The doorbell rang. Soft. Insistent. Thomas frowned. Who could that be? He went downstairs. Opened the door. 2 officers. Detective Harlan, the one Clara trusted. Mr. Whitmore? We'd like to speak with you. Thomas smiled. Of course. Is everything all right? They stepped inside. Eleanor Whitmore has made a statement. We have a warrant to search the premises. His face changed. Pale. What statement? She's ill. Confused. Upstairs. Eleanor called down. Voice steady. Thomas. It's over. He looked up the stairs. Saw her standing at the top. Wrapped in a blanket. But standing. Eyes clear. Alive. Police moved past him. Into the kitchen. Straight to the shelf. The clock. Retrieve the card. Into the shed. The bottle. Still half full. Thomas tried to speak. It's rat bait. Old. From years ago. But the footage was already playing on the detective's tablet. Night after night. His hand. The drops. The smile. He sat down heavily in the armchair. Defeated, as officers read him his rights. Eleanor came down the stairs. Slowly. But on her own. She looked at him. Not with hate. With sadness. Why, Thomas? He couldn't meet her eyes. The final twist came in the days that followed. Police dug deeper. Thomas's past. A previous wife. 10 years earlier. Died of a mysterious long illness. No autopsy. Cremated quickly. But medical records remained. Symptoms identical. Thallium traces in old blood work. Overlooked at the time. He had done this before. Not once. But twice. A serial spousal killer. Quiet. Patient. Preying on love. For insurance. For control. For the thrill of watching someone fade. While the world called him devoted. The trial was swift. Evidence overwhelming. 2 counts of attempted murder. 1 count of murder in the first wife's reopened case. Life. No parole. Thomas Whitmore, the perfect husband, would die in prison. Alone. Under the name the world finally knew him by. Monster. Comment in the quiet dawn. Have you ever seen evil hide in gentleness? Because Eleanor didn't just survive. She exposed it. For herself. For the wife before her. For any who might have come after. One more chapter remains. Eleanor's new beginning. The life that bloomed after the darkness. Stay with me. The sun is rising. And finally, dawn. True dawn. Thomas Whitmore was gone. Taken away in the quiet spring morning. The perfect husband unmasked. The gentle caretaker revealed as a monster. The trial came swiftly. The evidence undeniable. The hidden camera footage. The poison bottle. The tainted tea. The medical records matching his first wife's death. He tried to speak in court. To claim confusion. Accident. Even love gone wrong. But the jury saw the truth. Guilty. On all counts. Life imprisonment. No possibility of parole. He would spend his remaining years behind stone walls. No garden. No evening tea. No one to tend. Only the weight of what he had done. And the knowledge that the woman he tried to erase had outlived him in every way that mattered. Eleanor recovered. Slowly. Like the garden after winter. First, the strength to walk to the window. Then to the door. Then down the path among the roses. The poison left her body. The fog lifted from her mind. She cut the overgrown stems. Planted new life. The cottage, once a prison, became hers again. But she did not stay long. With the insurance money returned and a settlement from the estate, she bought a small cottage by the sea. White walls. Blue shutters. A garden facing the waves. She filled it with books. With light. With the sound of gulls and wind. She tended new roses. Read by the window as the sun set. Made her own tea. Whenever she wished. And one quiet afternoon, a kind neighbor introduced her to a gentle widower. A man who loved poetry and long walks. Who listened when she spoke. Who never hurried her healing. They became companions. Then more. A love born not of intensity, but of peace. Of shared silence that felt safe. Eleanor lived. Fully. Deeply. She volunteered at the library again. Helped others find stories of hope. She spoke quietly at gatherings for victims of hidden abuse. Told her story, not for pity, but to remind the world. Even in the darkest winter, spring comes. Even when strength seems gone, it returns. Comment softly as we close. Type, "She bloomed," if Eleanor's new dawn moves you. Or simply breathe with her as the waves roll in. This story is heavy, but it carries light. If you or someone you know is facing hidden harm, if care feels like control, if doubt has taken root, you are not alone. Help is there. Quiet. Waiting. Reach out. Your voice matters. Your life matters. Thank you for walking this path with me, for feeling the chill and the warmth that followed, for honoring Eleanor. If this story touched you, like, share, subscribe. More tales of quiet courage are coming. Until then, tend your own garden, brew your own tea, and remember, no darkness lasts forever. The dawn always comes. Thank you for listening.